Most guys are not trapped by life. They're trapped by the victim story they keep telling themselves. In this episode, I'm going to show you how that mindset keeps you bitter, stuck, and easy to control. We're going live, baby.
We'll do it live.
You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host,
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer. He is a certified master life coach and NLP practitioner.
It's true. It's damn true. It's Frame Friday, gentlemen, the most important show of the week. If you guys are new to the channel, my name is Paul Bauer. I help men level up and get better with women. And the funny thing about doing that is it tends to make us better men in all areas of our lives. If your life keeps disappointing you, but you're still blaming your ex, your boss, your childhood, or bad luck, this episode's for you. Because the truth is, victim thinking does more than keep you frustrated. It keeps you passive, keeps you bitter and stuck in the same loop. Today, I'm going to show you how that mindset wrecks your results and what has to change if you want your life to start working for you instead of against you. How many of you guys out there at one point in your life, maybe not now, maybe you've been working on it, maybe you tune into Frame Friday every week, but at one point in your life, how many of you out there were constantly playing the blame game? You're always pointing the fingers at other people. It's not my fault, it's their fault. Because that's a big problem with guys that have victim mentality. It's never their fault. They always want to blame other people. I had a guy working for me back when I was in IT before I retired from working in IT. I had this guy working for me, and it was like, man, anytime there was a problem, and he was ultimately responsible for fixing the problem and making sure that this problem doesn't happen again, he would always have an excuse. He would always have a reason why it's those people. These guys didn't give me enough time to work on this. These guys over here must have changed something. Like it was never his fault. He was always blaming other people. And do you guys at least know people like this? Okay, because I get it. You watching right now, you're above this. You're above this. You don't blame other people. You take full accountability for everything in your world, right? You take extreme ownership, don't you? But people with victim mentality, that's a telltale sign that they have a victim mentality is when they want to point their finger at everyone else and never look at themselves on what they can do. Okay. Now, there are going to be circumstances where things are outside of your control. Sure. But if that's your go-to is to find someone else to blame, you're never going to solve any problems. You're always going to be the victim. Everything's going to be outside of your control. Okay. So that's something you need to be aware of, especially if that's a bad habit that you have. By the way, guys, I do have new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Do be sure to like, subscribe, hit those notifications. Would you? So you don't miss a single episode. So a lot of that blame too automatically turns into excuses, right? When guys always have a reason why they can't act, they can't improve, they can't make decisions, there's always an excuse that goes along with it. And so that really goes hand in hand with blame, because blame becomes a very good excuse, right? Now, when I was in the Navy, this was the first time I ever heard this before. But my petty officers in the Navy, my recruit division commanders would say this frequently. They would say, if we always had an excuse for something, they would say, excuses, we're not at the 8-minute mark. Excuses are like a-holes. Everyone's got one and they all stink. Okay. Now that's when I was in IT, I was a director. So I was in charge of a whole team of people. And one of the things that I would find annoying is when we needed to solve a problem, there was always a blame situation or an excuse situation, and neither of which solves the problem. It's really easy to point fingers. It's really easy to come up with excuses, but actually solving problems requires effort, right? And so I would often tell these guys, don't bring me excuses, bring me solutions. Okay. I don't want to hear excuses. I want to hear solutions. Right. And that's where you really want to train your mind to be, is don't be excuse guy. Don't be blame game guy. Be solution guy. Okay. There's got to be a solution to this problem, and blaming people and finding excuses is the opposite of a solution. Okay. It really just keeps you stuck and not moving forward and actually solving problems. Okay. So there's a harsh reality that the moment you accept that life isn't fair and you stop expecting it to be, well, that's when a lot of these types of blame and excuses go away. And one of the big things that I'm going to try to do today, I'm going to at least attempt to do today, is try to get across the idea that when you're a victim, you're completely disempowering yourself. You're giving away all of your ability to solve problems and fix things so that life is a little more smooth for you. Okay. But if you're a victim, you are now relinquishing all power, all of your control to the situation, and you're just leaving it up to outside circumstances, the outside world, other people, and no one else is going to solve your problems for you. Okay. So if you have that mentality, life's never going to change for you, especially like, for you guys where life sucks and life's, my dad used to say this crap all the time, like life sucks, then you die, right? If that's your mentality, you got a very negative mindset. You'll never get out of that and have a better life, a more fulfilling life, a life that you actually enjoy if you stay in this disempowered state, right? But a lot of this becomes a story loop. The same internal story gets repeated so often, it starts to actually shape your results in life. And we get what we focus on. If you're always focusing on negative type events, negative activities, especially negative activities that are outside of your control, right? Like being a victim is outside of your control. If you're focused on that kind of stuff, more of that tends to show up for you, which just then reinforces the negativity. It becomes a negative feedback loop, right? And a lot of that too, though, is our reticular activating system. We talk about that a lot on Frame Fridays, about how the more you focus on certain things, the more your mind starts showing those things to you, which just reinforces your negative beliefs, your ineffective habits, your disempowering mindset, right? It just shows it more evidence to you of this thing. So in order to change that, you have to actually shift your paradigm a little bit and start reprogramming yourself to stop being in this, stop staying in this mindset, right? You've got to let go of the blame. You got to let go of the excuses and start being more solution oriented. And when you are looking for a way, when you're always looking for a way, oh, there's got to be a way to fix this. There's got to be a way to solve this problem. There's got to be a way. When that becomes your mindset, you'll start seeing more solutions out there instead of people to point the finger at, right? So let me ask you guys this. Who or what were you blaming before you finally took responsibility for your own life and actions? Or are you still blaming others? Okay. Now, this question isn't to beat up on you guys. It's not to, slam anybody. Okay. This is the trust tree. We're in the trust tree right now. You can be vulnerable with me right now. Paul, it's a trap. You tell us it's a trap all the time. This is the type of question that you need to ask yourself to bring it out of your subconscious into awareness. Because once you're aware of something, that's only then is when you can actually change something, is when you're aware of it. But until you're aware of it, you're going to keep doing what you've been always done. Okay. Because it's just going to feel natural to you. So I'm going to ask you guys again, who or what were you blaming before you finally took responsibility for your own life and actions, or are you still blaming others? Let me know in the chat, or if you're watching the replay, drop a comment below. If you're listening on Spotify, leave a comment there too. I enjoy interacting with the people that leave comments on Spotify. People that leave comments on YouTube are always hate comments. I don't really enjoy the comments on YouTube, but the comments on Spotify, they're always, they're usually pretty positive. All right. So we have old conditioning that we're contending with. So a lot of what you call your personality is really programming that you never question, right? This is where when I'm talking to guys, let's say it's in Wolfpack, maybe they've booked a one-on-one call or whatever. When I usually ask certain questions, and the reason why I ask questions when I'm bringing up stuff, one, that's what I learned from R.P. Thor. R.P. Thor was the sort of the mastermind around this book series here. R.P. Thor referred to it as the Socratic method, asking Socratic questions. And the reason why you would ask other people questions is because it's more effective to bring something to someone's awareness and to actually get them thinking about stuff when you have them answer the question that you want them to answer, right? It has them come to the realization. Other than, like, you could tell them, you can say, hey, this is your problem, da, 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 da. But most people, it'll go in one ear and out the other. And they'll be like, nah, bro, that's just who I am, bro. That's just who I am. Right. But if you ask, certain questions, get them to think, why do I feel this way? Why do I think this way? Then it starts bubbling up to their awareness. And then they're like, oh crap, I never even realized I was doing that. Okay. That's one of the reasons why in the Red Pill Guide series, I have workbooks. The workbooks are designed to ask you questions so that you dig deep and actually think about this stuff and write it out. And when you write it out and you think about it, it really brings that into the forefront of your awareness. And once you're aware of something, now you can change it. Right. So, but a lot of us have that old conditioning. That's just who I am. It's an identity now. Right? It's an identity to always point the finger, always blame other people, always find a scapegoat, right? That's just who I am. It's old conditioning, but that's really not who they are. Okay. That's old programming. It's old wiring. That's part of their paradigms. And there a lot of your paradigms, it's thoughts that you have at a subconscious level that cause you to act without even thinking about it. There is no conscious thought involved. It's just a reaction at this point. It's muscle memory to point the finger or find someone else to blame, not take any accountability. Now, what's interesting about this is people who blame other people, especially in the workforce. Okay. I'll tell you this, especially as a director. Okay. People who worked for me that would take accountability for their mistakes, I had way more respect for. And like they had probably more job security than anyone else. A lot of people in the workforce, they're afraid of losing their job. They're afraid of being blamed for stuff. So they want to blame other people to shift it over to them because of the same reason. They want that job security, and they're afraid, oh God, if I keep screwing up, I'm going to lose my job. I better blame so-and-so over here so it's not my fault. But the people that actually take accountability and they're like, no, I messed up here, I know how to fix it, those people get respect, and they are typically not going to be on the chopping block when the block's there to be chopped, right? So it's almost counterintuitive, because you're like, oh man, if I always get the blame, then I'm going to be the one that's fired. And that's just fundamentally not true. I one time, back in my early IT days, before I knew better, I was a little bit of a cowboy, right? I was like, let's just put it into production, right? Like, why even test it? Like, it's good enough, And there was, like, the first time I made that mistake, I literally brought an entire company to its knees overnight. Like, just one full day, the entire company wasn't making money because I fucked something up really bad. right? And when this happened, I was scared. I was like, oh fuck, I'm fired. I'm fired. I'm fired. My I almost went into panic mode, but I was conditioned in the military, and also, if you read Psychology Paradigm, I was conditioned by my karate sensei, Mr. Bodhi, to really take accountability. And so I was like, I didn't point the blame. I didn't try to hide it or whatever. I went right to my boss. I said, I did this. I fucked it up. This is what I did, and I know how to fix it. If we just do X, Y, and Z, I think we can undo this, and we would have been down probably for a good week, if not more, losing money for tons of time if I didn't come forward and say, this is what I did to fuck it up, and this is how we undo that. If I didn't do that, we would have been down for a long time. It would have been hell on earth, just because I'm trying to hide a mistake that I made. But I owned up to it. My boss was pissed at me, but he was also relieved that there was a solution. You know what I mean? So it sort of it counteracted the negative by me having a positive. And actually, I did end up solving the problem or whatever. But we called it like Black Tuesday, I think, for years. It was like the worst day in my entire career. But I didn't get fired for it. I took ownership. Right. But there's a lot of people that have that old conditioning, those old paradigms of I need to find someone to blame for this. And you see it in politics all the time. Right. The thing is that we often create sort of mental prisons for ourselves. Right. And these prisons are created by our beliefs, not necessarily the circumstances outside of us. So, that guy that I was talking about before, when I was, a director, and he would always blame other people, always have excuses. This guy lived in a constant state of anxiety and paranoia, and just worried about job security and all this stuff. He would stay late when he didn't have to. A lot of his staying late was just because he was insistent on doing things his way instead of learning how to do things the right way. And then he would say, look how hard I'm working. I'm working all these extra hours. It was like, dude, you're only working extra hours because you're not doing the job right, and you're causing more problems for yourself. You know what I mean? And then he would blame other people for that sort of thing. It ended up becoming this mental prison for him, And if that's your mentality, when you're always blaming other people and pointing the fingers, and you're always a victim and stuff like that, you end up creating a mental prison for yourself. Look at woke people. Okay. Look at woke people, and they're always talking about racism and sexism and all this. They're oppressed by the patriarchy and all this kind of stuff. It's like, but are you though? Or are you just in a constant state of looking for a reason to be a victim? And I'm sure there's people out there, some woke ass people that are like, Paul, your white male privilege is showing right now. And it's like, yeah, maybe, or maybe is it that I just have a different attitude when it comes to this stuff, and I'm not always looking for reasons to be offended. Right? Like I'll give you guys a great example of a way I could have been a victim, had a victim mentality, and felt offended all the fucking time. And we're going to talk about it more next week on Frame Friday, because next week on Frame Friday, I'm doing the hair reveal. Guys. Okay. For the last 4 years, I've been shaving my head and going completely bald. And it's been a fantastic social experiment. And people really, I see it a lot. People really have a bald insecurity, right? I could say they have a bald prejudice, and they're always like wanting to point, call me baldy or whatever. Or I could look at it like those people are massively insecure, and they're projecting their insecurities on me. That's not my problem. That's their problem, right? Like, I hope they don't become bald someday. But that they're deathly afraid of it if that's their first go-to when it comes to trying to insult somebody, right? But that's that becomes a mental prison. So if you're a guy who's actually bald and actually very insecure about it, that becomes a mental prison for you, right? Kind of a side topic when it comes to, you know, being a victim. But I mean, if you're a bald guy and then you're constantly, you know, like offended by people calling you bald or whatever, you have massive insecurities about it, that's going to create a victim mindset, and it's going to be your own mental prison, right? It's kind of like, we'll talk about more next week on Friday, but it's like the guys who are massively insecure about it. So they, you know, they try to cover it up with like a comb over, or they try to put, you know, a toupee on, or they go and buy a bunch of Rogaine or whatever. Like that's a mental prison that they're creating for themselves because they're massively insecure about their hair. They could just own it and shave it, right? And then they just, hey, whatever, right? They're owning it. They're owning the situation, and they're not being a victim by male pattern baldness, which they have no control over anyway, right? Anyway, a lot of that kind of stuff is a lot of the reason why people do become, you know, they develop a victim mentality, or they want to blame other people, is because their ego takes a hit. Their ego takes a hit when they get the blame for something. And so now they want to shift the blame because they're not necessarily suffering from the event itself. It's the hit to their ego, right? Their pride got hit. So now in order to try to take that pressure off themselves, they want to shift the blame to other people or point the finger, right? And so, you know, it really takes a lot of effort and training and practice to not let your ego run the show, you know, and really look at things more, I guess, rationally and objectively, and as opposed to letting your ego run the show. Because when your ego runs the show, that's where you tend to react. That's where you tend to tell yourself stories that aren't necessarily true, right? Because I talked about it last week. Like, watch the stories that you're telling yourself, because, you know, circumstances in life by themselves are typically neutral. It's the stories we tell about them that causes us to react in a certain way. And a lot of that is ego protection, right? A lot of that's ego protection. You see that a lot in this red pill space, right? Where people, they don't want to believe the red pill truths that we put out there. These objective facts about intersexual dynamics. A lot of people want to dismiss it because it's an attack on their ego. They've been believing the blue pill fantasy for so long that when we come up and say, hey, look, man, there's no such thing as the one, right? Their ego protection doesn't want to hear that. And then they lash back out, and it's kind of an interesting thing to watch. By the way, guys, I've mentioned psychology paradigm. If you are the kind of person that tends to, you know, you kind of want to point the finger at other people. You don't like to take accountability for yourself. Maybe you like to always point the finger at women and be like, women are allergic to accountability, those bitches, right? And you never want to hold yourself accountable. You might want to take a look at your paradigm and how you've been programmed.
Have you ever felt like something's holding you back in your relationships? Like you're always on the back foot, struggling to connect with women? You're not alone. Many men are taught to be weak, to defer, to play small around women by their upbringing, by society, by the very world that shaped them. But what if you could break free from the invisible chains that have held you back? What if you could rewrite the script, reprogram the paradigm that's been running your life? This is your chance to step into the man you were always meant to be. In The Essential Skills of a Masculine Presence, Psychology Paradigm by Paul Bauer, the first book in R.P. Thor's groundbreaking series, you'll learn how to understand and transform the paradigms that have shaped your life. You'll discover how to develop a dominant masculine presence, one that commands respect, inspires trust, and brings fulfillment to your relationships. Don't wait for life to change on its own. Take control. Order your copy of The Essential Skills of a Masculine Presence, Psychology Paradigm now on Amazon. Available in hardcover paperback, or on Kindle. This is more than a book. It's your roadmap to a life of purpose, strength, and success. Make the decision today. Reprogram your life and step into the man you were meant to be.
Indeed. Mike Steele's in the house. He says, Freaky Friday. Nurse Chicks, he says, good morning, gentlemen. Thank God it's Friday. She always gets this.
I'm so naughty.
She is.
I'm gonna come.
Oh, I
That
will.
pussy must be ridiculous.
It is, guys. Eric Von Erich's in the house. Good to see you, brother. James Sam says she moved out. Oh, that sucks, man. It sounds like you need to read Forget That Bitch. Then if she moves out, let her go. Let her go, bro. Brother Dale says butthurt negativity feedback loop. Fuck my life. Yeah, it's gonna take some work to get out from under that, especially if you've been doing it for 30, 40, 50 years. I don't know how old you are, Dale. You're in good shape. You're probably in your 40s, I'm guessing. He's like, dude, I'm 75 years old. What the fuck are you talking about? He's actually in really good shape. If you've been doing that stuff that many years, you can't undo that programming overnight. It's gonna take some effort. CW says, morning, gents and Nurse Chick. Good to see you, CW. Mark says, so when solutions are presented and one is not willing to do so, what then in a couple? Well, I'm going to need more context than to answer that properly. But really, like when I look at this sort of thing as a couple, you as the man are the leader. That's why I say there's no such thing as partners. You're the leader. You need to set the tone and lead. And ultimately, the mission of the entire relationship rests on your shoulders. You're the captain of the ship. It's like when the captain of a U.S. naval vessel, right? He is ultimately in charge of the ship, even though he's not always steering the ship. In fact, captains don't steer the ship, right? They have an officer of the deck that's in charge. And then it's a fucking, junior seaman that's actually steering the ship, right? But if the officer of the deck runs the ship aground, it's the captain that gets fired. He gets relieved of command of duty, even though he's not the one. He might have been sleeping when it happened, but ultimately it's his responsibility to come up with solutions and then make sure that those solutions are getting implemented. Now, if you are in a situation where you've been working on this sort of thing and your wife's just not following your lead, for a lot of guys, for a vast majority of guys out there, they've never taken the lead. They've always just left things up to their wife. Their wife has assumed command of the ship. And now she resents your ass because you haven't been doing it for so many years. This is why, this is where guys are like, where do you want to eat, honey? Right. And I don't want to upset her. And I don't want to pick the wrong place. So you just pick a place and fuck, why don't you pick a place, you bitch? Right. And all this kind of stuff. Whereas if you would have from the beginning just been like, hey, we're going to go get steak. You know what I mean? And you just make these decisions and allowed her to follow your lead, you would have never been in this position. But now you're in a position where she's running the show. She don't want to listen to your ass anymore. So now you have a 1,000-foot tow rope situation where you've got to slowly turn the ship around in the middle of the ocean, and warships don't turn on a dime, and she's on a tow rope behind you, and it's going to take a while to get that tow rope to come back around. It's just going to take some time and effort. So what I would say, Mark, is if you are in that situation, if you haven't get her to fuck you again, get this book, because it'll teach you how to communicate with her from a position of authority where shit gets done. Okay. So I would say that, but I would also need more context about that specific situation that you're talking about. Mike was saying I was blaming the government. You know what? What's funny, Mike, you live in a big metropolitan area. And what I found is living out in the cow pasture, largely the government has no impact on my life. So there's a lot of shit that the government fucks up with, but it's like some of that's out of your control, but some of it is in your control by like how you vote, like, are you active and proactive? Like, are you proactive? Are you writing your congressman or whatever? Now, there's also certain situations where that's that's pointless too. Well, I lived in California for a bunch of years. After I got out of the Navy, I stayed in California for a long time, and I'd write, Nancy Pelosi, and I'd write Barbara Boxer, and those bitches would just send back a canned letter that had nothing to do with, a canned email, that had nothing to do with what I wrote them. So you could tell that they weren't even reading it. You know what I mean? So like that kind of shit's pointless. And then like they're in districts where like they're going to just keep voting those chicks in anyway. So it's like, at what point you just, okay, well, fine. I'm gonna walk away from all that sort of thing, Let's see here. Erica says, good day, folks. Dale says, blaming my parents, my wife, my boss, feminism, and the commie government. Fucking commies. Those commie pinkos. And then Ken of Rockstar says, good morning. He says, hey, the guy Rollo had on the other day brought up the Sedona method, and I think it is a great tool for emotional pillar of frame. I'm not familiar with that. I'm going to have to check out that episode. Dar Fitness says, happy Frame Friday, gents. Good to see you, brother. And he says, I had a buddy, Ken of Rockstar says, I had a buddy who started balding in high school and decided to shave it like 22, at like 22. His aura changed. There you go. CJ says, I shaved my armpits and I felt gay. Yeah, as you should, sir. As you should. That's super. No, I'm just kidding. There's nothing wrong with trimming the hedges. You know what I mean? You don't want to look like you got buckwheat in a headlock, right? Brother Dale says, for a $10,000 super chat, I can't believe he sent this much money. Must be rolling it. He says, when you tell me to stop being beta and drop the victim mentality, where's the line between owning my frame and just becoming rigid, defensive, and blind to my own weaknesses? Hold frame. Well, it's really, it's interesting. That's a great question. I'm listening to a book right now called A Changed Mind, I think it is, by David. Fuck, I can't even think of his name. Anyway, it's called A Changed Mind. And one of the things that he talks about in there is the difference between having, God, how did he put this? It's so wonderfully put, and I'm not doing it justice. He's basically saying that when you're in a state, like a primal state, that's it. Like when you're in a primal state, which is, fight, flight, or freeze. When you're in a primal state, then you're having a disempowered mindset, right? You're not in your frame. So where it's like becoming rigid and defensive, that is where you're in a primal state. And that means you're not holding frame, right? You're not holding frame because you're reactive. You're being reactive. But when you're in a non-primal state, you're in an empowered state, which means you're actually like thinking about the situation. You're more solution oriented. Now you're more in an empowered state. I hope I answered that question. That's where you want to be, right? It's not always easy, especially if we've been reactive our whole lives. We got walking around with a chip on our shoulder. We're looking to fight about stuff. You're in a primal state, right? Because you're in fight, flight, or freeze. You're looking for a fight. Okay. You're now in a more disempowered state when you're like that, because that's survival mode. You're in survival mode. So that's where the line is, right? If you're in a primal state or if you're in an empowered state. Oh shit. AJ's in the house, checking in from my director of data center desk. Good to see you, man. Director. How you doing, bro? How you doing? Sounds like things are doing well. Is this the new job? Is this the new job, AJ? Let me know. All right, guys. Where are we? Oh shit! Hold on. Dale did give me this, so let me say this here.
I was just gonna say it. This guy fucks. Am I right?
Definitely fucks. Definitely fucks. All right. Now getting back to it. Approval trap. Approval trap. It's funny. You'll see that people with victim mentality often are approval seeking. They're approval seeking. They're attention seeking. And if that's you as a man, being approval seeking in any way really makes you weak, and it makes your decisions. It makes you easy to control. I should say, it makes you really easy to control because you'll do anything to keep getting that that attention and approval. And a lot of people with that victim mentality, they're not necessarily seeking approval, but they're definitely seeking validation. I saw a lady on Threads this morning, and she was like, I feel so ugly, I feel so disgusting and whatever, and I'm tired of these guys, blah 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 blah. And you guys aren't going to see me for a while. And I can't remember all the nonsense she said. And I just replied back with, well, bye. Like, I'm not going to give you the validation that you're looking for. Right. But that's her with a victim mentality out there looking for approval and validation from strangers online to make her feel better. And like, that really makes you look weak. Especially if you're a guy and you're vague booking. Right? Have you ever seen a guy vague book? Oh, it's the weakest thing that you can ever see. And God, I saw one from a guy maybe a year or two ago, and I'm pretty sure he was. I'm pretty sure he either found me because of TikToks and the podcast, or he was in the original 3% Man group. I can't remember. I've sort of, been friends with this guy online for a long time. And man, I swear to God, like a year or two ago, he was vague booking like crazy and talking about all this shit. And I DM'd him and I was like, you going through a breakup or something? Like, what is going on with your post, bro? And he's like, yeah, man. Da, da, da. And it was just total like victim mentality. And he was out there vague booking, looking for, clicks and shit from validation from strangers online. It's like, that is unattractive behavior, man. Like, one of the things that we talk about in the red pill space is be attractive, don't be unattractive. Like, that kind of behavior is very unattractive type behavior. It really makes you look weak. And you do see women doing that sort of thing all the time, but you as a man, you can't afford to do that because you've got a patriarchy to run, bro. Oh, man. A lot of guys with victim mentality, they have a scarcity mindset too, right? They think there's never enough, so they become tense, reactive, bitter. That's why I was saying, like, this guy at work was always like trying to shift the blame and point the fingers at other people because he had a real scarcity mentality when it came to his job, and he thought that he was protecting his job by actually pointing the fingers at everybody, but that just really ended up making him look worse, right? And so you got to get rid of that scarcity mentality. And you'll really have more of an abundance mentality. That was more of last week's episode, though, right? And then a lot of people that have victim mentality, they have a sense of entitlement. Like they feel like they're entitled to be treated better, or they're be treated differently. And when they're not treated how they think that they're entitled to be treated, they get really they build up a lot of resentment and stuff like that. You see that a lot with guys doing covert contracts in their relationships, right? Like I'm paying for all the bills. I put this roof over your head. I put food on the table. You at least owe me da, 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 da. And that kind of mentality keeps people acting like they're victims, right? Because they're not getting this entitlement that they think that they should be getting. So now they're a victim. And now they're completely disempowered. Whereas when you let go of that kind of stuff, you let go of the covert contracts, you let go of the attachment to outcome, and you stop acting like you're entitled to everything and really start taking ownership for everything in your world. Now you start realizing that you aren't necessarily entitled to whatever you think you're entitled to, sex or whatever, just because you took out the fucking trash. You know what I mean? Like that's something that needed to be done anyway. So why, like, you're not entitled to jack shit. Like, that's something that needed to be done, right? So when you let go of that entitlement and realize that you stop doing things to get things, start doing things because you either want to do them or they need to be done, or you don't fucking do them at all. Like, that's where you start seeing real changes in life and you stop becoming a victim. By the way, guys, I do have this show is largely sponsored by viewers, so do consider sending a super chat, would you? Emotional control. So emotional control is something that'll help you let go of this type of mentality, this victim mindset. And it's something that we really try to work on Frame Fridays, because emotional control is one of the main pillars in mental frame, right? You have, if you read the book Frame by that bastard Ryan Stone, which I highly recommend you guys do. It's a really good book. He he talks about the tetrahedron of frame, and the tetrahedron of frame. If you guys don't know what a tetrahedron is, you can look at it like a pyramid, like a three-sided pyramid, or like a tripod, right? But I like to look at it like a tripod, right? You have three legs that hold up the middle where like a camera would go. That middle part is your vision. Like, what do you want in life? Where do you see things going, right? How do you see your relationship going? Like, where are you leading this interaction? Well, one of the legs is your emotional control, right? The other ones are physical. The other one's intellectual. But your emotional pillar, if that's weak, your vision's going to fall over. Right? If your physical pillar is weak, it's going to fall over. If your intellectual pillar is weak, it's going to fall over. So learning good emotional control and learn to not be in primal states and being more in empowered states and being able to rationally look at situations and respond to situations as opposed to being reactive. That's going to empower you to not have that victim mentality, because that victim mentality is going to keep you in that reactive type state, right? And that's probably one of the hardest things for men to learn. You know, it's funny. We in the red pill space like to talk about how women are these emotional beings and they're controlled by their emotions, and us men, we're rational beings and stuff like that. But when you are in the space and you're coaching men and all this kind of stuff, you realize that a lot of men are very much controlled by their emotions, very much so. It's just, it's expressed differently, right? Like women default to crying and sadness and stuff, and men tend to default to anger. So you see a lot of guys being pissed off all the time. I'm pissed off at this. I'm pissed off at her. I'm pissed off at whatever. And when you see a guy sort of reacting from that from that anger, you know that they don't really have very good emotional control yet, right? It's something that they need to work on. That's where things like the 3-second rule really comes into play. And the more you work on this stuff, the more that becomes the habit. The more you actually start being more rational, is because you are developing new habits around that as opposed to being more reactive. And that just takes time and repetition. You know what I mean? It's one of the reasons why a lot of guys look at shit testing, right? They look at shit testing like a negative. And once you get, I'm always inviting guys to look at shit tests like a positive, like seek out the shit tests, right? Be like, welcome them. And when you see them, like recognize them for what they are and almost like chuckle at it. Like, this is funny. Oh, sweet. This is a shit test. Sweet. Let's get into it. Let's agree and amplify here. Let's have some fun with it. Right. It's a total different way of looking at it. But guys who are still looking at it like, oh, she's shit testing me so fucking hard. And, oh, this is so annoying. And whatever, they're still being very reactive. They still need some work on that emotional control and how they're perceiving the situation, and then work on the stories that they're telling themselves, right? Because if you look at that situation from a different point of view, it's fun and amusing, right? But it's just about the stories that you're telling yourselves and those old habits that need to be reprogrammed. You know what I mean? And so response is power. Okay. So the strength is in how you respond, not in trying to control every event, and this is really where Stoicism is handy, man. Some lady on Threads this morning said that she asked a guy if he had ever heard of Marcus Aurelius, and the guy hadn't heard of Marcus Aurelius. And so she's like, well, he's not getting a second date. And it's funny because a lot of guys in the comments were fucking losing their mind about it. And I actually replied back. I go, that's honestly not a bad litmus test. You know what I mean? If you guys have at least seen the movie Gladiator, you should at least know who Marcus Aurelius was, right? He was a Roman emperor. And if you don't even know that, that means that you probably haven't seen the movie Gladiator, and you're not even a real man if you haven't seen the movie Gladiator. I mean, come on, let's be real here. And then on top of that, Marcus Aurelius, he's a sort of, icon in the Stoic space. He was a Stoic philosopher. He wasn't just an emperor. he was a student of Epictetus and, some other guys. I really only know Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, though, when it comes to Stoicism. But Stoicism, that if you could study a little bit of that, the problem with Stoicism when it comes to dealing with women is it's handy when it comes to mental frame to a point. But if you're too stoic, then you're not fun. Now you're just a boring guy, and you're still not going to do that well with women, even though you have really good emotional control. You don't you're very expressionless. You know what I mean? Like, God, who's a guy in the space that I would say is like super stoic? Or at least he is most of the time. I'd say Rich Cooper. Rich Cooper is a very stoic type guy, right? But and he does laugh. He does have a sense of humor. I had him on my show years ago, and I got him to crack up a few times. It's always good to get a real stoic guy to fucking crack a smile, because that's when like, okay, all right, you are human after all. The Wraith the Antor. If you guys don't know who Wraith is, he's written like, I think he's got 100 books out there now. His books are phenomenal too. He actually wrote one of the books in the Psychology Paradigm series. Actually, he helped Thor write a second one too. But his book is on frame also. So if you really want to work on mental frame, get Wraith's book on frame. But Wraith is probably one of the most stoic men I've ever fucking talked to in my life. Dude is very even keeled. Nothing bothers him. Everything is very rational. He, if you ever go back and watch the old Dragon Ship episodes, I mean, Wraith he's very even keeled, and I would make it my fucking mission to make that man fucking crack a smile and laugh a little bit. But the thing is, when you learn Stoicism, you learn stuff like control the controllable, right? Control what you can, and then let go anything that you can't control, right? And that's really where it's really hard for a lot of guys to fathom. But when it comes to like fixing your relationships and stuff like that, you can't control your wife. You can't control your girlfriend. You can't control what these other people are doing. The only thing you have actual control over is yourself and how you're responding to the situation, right? That is when you really have power. Because when you're trying to change things that are outside of your control, you really do start developing this victim mentality. Like, I'm trying to change her. She's not willing to change. What do I do about it? I'm a victim now, which kind of goes back to the question we had earlier, which was my man on Facebook said, so when solutions are presented and one is not willing to do so, what then in a couple, right? Because he's trying to make her do something, and you can't make people do anything, really. And so when you're constantly trying to make other people do something and they're not willing to do it, now you feel like a victim almost, right? But in that situation, you only have control over what you can do, right? So maybe the argument, I really have no idea if there's a specific thing that he's talking about, or if this is just a general question. But if it's a situation of who's going to take out the fucking trash, and you're like, I shouldn't have to take out the fucking trash because I'm working, 17-hour shifts, and you're a stay-at-home mom and you're here all day. Why can't you take out the fucking trash? And then you're leaving it up to her to take out the trash, and she's not willing to do it, and you're not willing to do it. Now the trash is just not going to take out. Now you're a victim. It's like, okay, just take out the fucking trash because it needs to be taken out, right? You have full control over that. You know what I mean? So it's like you've got to look at this sort of thing from different perspectives. Like, control what you can, let go of what you can't. Okay. Past bondage, letting old failures and old pain define who you are now. One thing that we were talking about last week on abundance thinking was realizing that the present moment is the only reality, right? And things in the past only exist in your head, and things in the future only exist in your head. And what's fascinating about the present moment also is it's not a reflection of who you are, or even what you're capable of. Your present reality is a reflection of past beliefs, past actions, past decisions, everything. That's what's manifested for yourself in the present moment. It's the past. You're looking at a mirror reflection of the past, right? And so a lot of your present situation puts you in a victim mentality because of your past results, right? It can, if you let it. But if you sort of take ownership of that and realize, okay, my present moment, my present situation is a result of my past actions. It's just a mirror reflection of my past. What can I do about it? Well, I can make different changes going forward to change my future, right? That is an empowering mindset, right? But if you're looking at your current situation from your past results, going, my past, and then you start worrying about your past and all the shit that you can't change, and now you're a victim of your past, it's like, that's all in your head, man. That's all in your head. It doesn't even exist. Okay. You can't change it anymore. So focusing on all that shit and being a victim of your past doesn't help you move forward. So once you take ownership of that and go, okay, yes, I fucked up in the past. Yes, I made a lot of mistakes. What am I going to do going forward? Now you're solution oriented, and now you can actually make changes to improve yourself going forward, right? By the way, guys, if you want help working on this, it does help swapping notes with other guys that are working on this. Beer club? Not anymore.
Wolfpack, you fix what's broken. You lead like a man again. No pity, no therapy. Just fire, just flame. Cold bed, broken home, midlife drift, feeling alone. You don't need hacks, blogs, lies. You need men with fire in their eyes. We rebuild from the ground up. No excuses, no soft stuff. Telegram lit 24/7. Brothers locked in steel, not heaven. Step inside the pack. We don't fall, we attack. Truth, fire, presence, we bring it back. Masculine pride, no time to slack. Step inside the pack. Drop your past, claim your track. No therapy talk, no playing small. We sharpen blades, we take it all.
Indeed, too sweet me for that one. What do we got here? Let's see here. Oh shit, we got a bunch of other comments here. AJ says imposter syndrome, full speed. Yes, at the new job. You got this, bro. You know what you're doing, bro. Yeah, what's interesting, I should do a Frame Friday on imposter syndrome, but everybody in a new position has imposter syndrome. Everybody, literally everybody does. And let's see here. Erkin sent 10 Swedish coronas, which is probably like $10 million US, I think. God, man, I'm going to be filthy rich now with that one. I'm going to give him a respect the cock.
Respect the cock and tame the cunt.
Indeed. And then let's see here. What's vague booking? Vague booking is where people put random stuff without context on social media, just bitching and moaning about a situation, right? They'll say stuff like, if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. Fuck this shit and whatever. And they'll just be like, it'll be a rant where they don't explain anything that's going on, right? Like it's just a rant about woe is me. That's vague booking. You see a lot of women doing that shit, and you see a lot of like weak men doing that kind of shit. Let's see here. Oh, you guys are having a conversation. Hold on. Let's see here. Fuck, pour one out for Chuck Norris. Wait, what happened to Chuck Norris? I saw that he was in the hospital, but did he die? He didn't fucking die, did he? Don't tell me he fucking died, dude. Don't fucking do this to me right now. Oh shit, he says now God has a sparring partner. No, get the fuck out of here. Ah, fuck. That sucks, man. That sucks. Let's see here. Can of Rockstar says, I guess I got to turn in my man card. I never saw Gladiator. Yes, we'll be collecting your man card at the door, brother. You're going to have to fix that this weekend. You got a whole weekend to remedy that solution. And then we'll return your man card upon completion of the written test. There's going to be a written test. You don't need to watch Gladiator 2. It wasn't that good, but Gladiator 1 you have to watch. Women will forgive you for lying or cheating, but not for being boring. That's true. You can be anything to a woman, but you can't be boring. Can of Rockstar also said the ultimate neg when the trash conversation comes up, grab her by the hand and say, let's go for a walk. Get to the curb and turn her around. Just take that bitch to the curb. Too sweet, brother. Too sweet. $5,000 super chat. Mandatory man watch list. Saving Private Ryan. Gladiator. 300. Master and Commander. First Blood. Terminator 2. Commando. And Rocky. Yeah, those are all good ones. Yeah, I've seen all those ones. Those are pretty good. Oh, you know what's good? Corey Wayne mentions it in 3% Man, but Cinderella Man. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Cinderella Man. That's actually a pretty good movie. Another Russell Crowe flick, right? It's a true story about a boxer during the Great Depression. And it's really a good showing of is a man of purpose, a man of mission, right? And his wife shit testing him by trying to knock him off his mission and him going, no, I have to do this. I'm a man. I have to fucking do this. And the thing is when he pushed past her shit testing, she loved him even more because she wasn't able to knock him off his purpose, his mission, right? Great movie for men. Okay, I'm going to try to wrap this up fucking quick here because we're almost at an hour. Identity lies. So a lot of guys carry false belief about who he is and what he's capable of. You see this a lot in the black pill space, the black pill negative side of MGTOW, right? Because MGTOW exists on a spectrum. There's, like I would say I'm on the I would say the positive side of MGTOW, whereas like I love women. I like being in relationships, and I just don't want to get the government involved in my relationships. I would say I'm on that side of the spectrum if I wanted to say MGTOW at all. And then there's the negative black pill doomer, nihilistic, run far away from women, don't even associate with women type of MGTOW. Those guys are fully in a victim mindset, right? And a lot of it is identity beliefs around themselves and their capabilities around women. And they think, oh, hypergamy is this evil thing that just manifested itself with modern women, which isn't true, right? And they learn red pill and they look at it as a reason why they need to give up. Right. Fuck. If this is how women are, why even do it? And the thing is that black pillars are guys that can't let go of that blue pill fantasy. And because they know that red pill is true, but because they can't fulfill this blue pill fantasy, they might as well just fucking give up. Why is life's not even worth living anymore? Right. And now it's a total victim mentality. Whereas, purple pill guys are very similar. Like purple pill guys are like, oh, I have this blue pill fantasy of living happily ever after with the princess, but now I know how women really act. I'm going to use this to fulfill my blue pill fantasies and like get married and have life ever after. And it's like, you're still not embracing the full reality, right? Whereas like red pill guys that have gone through all the stages of red pill and they've just come to an acceptance of how it is. Those guys are like, okay, I love women still, and I'm going to keep loving women. I just understand fundamentally that women don't love men the same way, and women can never be this fantasy that they can never fulfill the pedestal that you've put them on. And that's okay. You know what I mean? Like they were never supposed to. It's just the story that we've been told our whole lives. You know what I mean? And so, but these guys in the victim mentality things where I'm just going to give up. There these identity lives. And the thing is that feeling bad almost feels comfortable. We've got this negativity bias in our brains that make it like we just sort of err on the side of negativity. And it's so easy to spiral downward, right? And then these guys, when you try to give them some relief and be like, hey man, you can use this stuff to your advantage. You can actually have healthy relationships with women. You don't have to get the government involved. No one says you have to get the government involved, and all this kind of stuff. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it, right? That's where people that are pessimists, they hate optimists, right? Because pessimists are like, I'm real. I'm grounded in reality. This is real. No, that's not real. That's the story you're telling yourself, and it feels real to you. It's not real. Okay. That's one of the fascinating things about reality is like two people can look at the same thing and have completely different stories about it. And so their realities are completely different, right? That's why a lot of what we say in the red pill space is objective reality isn't necessarily objective reality. Some of it's very much subjective. You know what I mean? Like when guys in the space talk about women with tattoos being damaged goods, that's a story they've told themselves. And to them, that's an objective reality. But I like women with tattoos, and I found that it's just fundamentally not necessarily true, right? Yes, there are broken women with tattoos, but there's also great women with tattoos. You know what I mean? Like it's a preference thing. It's what you're telling yourself. You know what I mean? But that negativity bias almost feels comforting. It feels better. It's like a warm blanket to wallow in self-pity, right? And the thing is that when you stay stuck there, it's learned helplessness, right? After enough losses, you stop trying and you call that being real. That's where a lot of these black pill nihilistic MGTOW type guys are. It's learned helplessness. They've done studies on this stuff where they've done terrible fucking studies, right? They took dogs in cages and they zapped the shit out of these dogs, and the dogs were trying to get out of this cage and couldn't get out of this cage, and they just kept zapping the shit out of these dogs, right? Eventually the dogs just learned, like, this, why even try? Might as well give up. And they just fucking started taking it, right? They just started taking the hits. And then the researchers opened the cage so that they could get out, and the dogs wouldn't even leave the cage. They wouldn't even leave because they've learned that this is just how life is, and they've mentally resolved to just give up. Okay. And that's where a victim mentality will lead you. It'll lead you into learned helplessness. And that's where a lot of these black pill, negative minded MGTOW guys are. They've learned helplessness, and now they think they're just being real. This is just reality, right? Pretty fascinating and sad at the same time. I would invite you guys to not be victims and don't feel helpless. Okay. There's always a choice. Okay. By the way, guys, follow me on social media. If you're in a marriage, okay, if you're married and you fundamentally just fucking don't like your wife, I just can't stand this bitch. Nothing that Paul says, nothing. Like, I've worked on my frame, I've worked on everything, and this bitch just isn't getting better, right? I've followed this, to a T, and I just don't like her. I just don't fucking like her. Well, that's what the last chapter of the book is all about. The last chapter of Get Her to Fuck You Again is like, okay, you've done the work on yourself. You've worked on your mental frame. You're handling shit tests like a boss. Like, a lot of the stuff that she's doing, like, you handle it effortlessly. You go to the gym, your money's on point and all this kind of stuff. And she's just not coming along for the ride. At some point, you just got to realize, okay, I'm going to be better off with someone else. Okay. But a lot of guys jump to that, right? They just jump to that. They're like, you know what? Fuck this bitch. I can't deal with her anymore. And then they go out and they never work on themselves. They never do what's in this book, and they just replace her thinking that solves a problem. And then they end up in the same relationship again down the road. They're just kicking the can down the road. Okay. Because those ineffective relationship skills never got learned. And now they're going to take those ineffective relationship paradigms into their next relationship. So it's like, okay, if you've truly done the work on yourself, if shit she's doing really doesn't bother you, but you just fundamentally don't like her anymore, and she's just not getting on board with your program, well, you're still empowered to go talk to an attorney and start making an exit, and not just leaving it up to her to do it. Right? A lot of guys will not get out of their current situation, and they prefer to do a death by cop method of just acting so bad that she finally has to pull the trigger. And I think that's a cowardly way to end things. If you really don't fucking like her, be proactive and go find an attorney and start planning your exit. Okay. Be more proactive. Read the book, Divorce is War, and make a strategy. Okay. Get in the wolf pack, get in the divorce strategy group, and start working with Brother Nathan. Okay. That's what I would recommend. It's still in your control. You don't have to stay in that situation, but you're choosing to, and then you're choosing to act like a victim about it. Okay. So what are you going to do, brother? What are you fucking going to do? Okay. Oh, but the divorce attorneys and the divorce is not, like we have no agency, and like, okay, no, you have agency. You have agency, and you just have to accept the consequences of your decisions. If you decide to pull that trigger because you fundamentally don't like her and life is too short, okay, plan your exit strategy, but also plan, okay, I'm probably gonna have to pay so much in alimony. I'm probably gonna have to pay so much in child support, and just fucking own it. Just fucking pull that trigger. Because if you leave it up to her, you're still gonna have that same situation, and then you're gonna be even more of a fucking victim. Okay, be more proactive. Resentment. Let's see. Ownership. So the turning point really is when you stop asking who to blame and start asking what's in my control, right? What can I do about this situation? So one thing that I do recommend, if you were ignorant enough, most of us were, so this isn't an insult. When you say the word ignorant, it does come across as insulting, but I could say if you were unknowing enough to get married because you thought that was the right thing to do, and now you're in a marriage, like no one gets married, in my opinion, no one gets married hoping for it to end, right? No one goes into a marriage hoping that they're going to hate their wife, right? So most people go into a marriage sort of expecting marital problems, and then they're going to resolve those problems. It's just that most of us aren't trained to resolve those types of problems, right? So what I would say is if you pull that trigger, it does behoove you to try to make it work. Okay. So that's what Get Her to Fuck You Again is about. But if you just fundamentally can't, then okay, well, now it's time to move on and forget that bitch. All right. But this is all in your control. And these are all decisions you have to make. And this is a part of being a leader, making hard decisions, right? When you're a boss at a company and you have an employee that's consistently fucking up, you've counseled them, you've tried to lead them in the right direction, you've tried to train them up right, and they are still fundamentally fucking up, well, then you've got to make the hard decisions and fire them, right? But that's in your control. That's a part of being a leader, and not just going, well, what else am I going to do? And, whatever. So it's taking ownership of everything in your world and controlling the controllable and making the hard decisions sometimes, right? That's where you stop being a victim and you start being more proactive in your own fucking life. Okay. But that's going to, it's going to take a lot of internal focus. So a guy gets stronger when he stops living from outside circumstances and starts working from internal standards and decisions. Okay. So that means this is where you take ownership of your life and you start controlling what's in your immediate control. You let go what you can't control, start controlling what you can control. But it really does take some internal, some introspection. It's going to take some introspection to realize that you have ineffective paradigms. You have paradigms that are keeping you disempowered. And that's where, psychology paradigm comes in. All right. And a good thing to look at is adversity as being fuel. Okay. You got to understand that challenges in life, if you want to get esoteric about it, right? If you really want to get, if you want to get into the woo-woo about it, a good way to look at challenges in life are those challenges are either, you can look at them from a victim standpoint, like, oh, life just keeps happening to me, this sucks. Or you can look at those challenges like that's life conditioning you to be the man that you were always supposed to be. Okay. Because a lot of life, especially for man, is becoming, right? Women are typically born with their value, right? They're born being able to give birth. If they're relatively attractive, life is going to be handed to most women, right? But men, you have to become. You have a burden of performance to become something, right? And if you look at the challenges in your life as just the things that are preparing you to become the man that you were always supposed to be, you'll welcome those challenges when they come. It's like going to the gym and welcoming the heavier weight, because that heavier weight is making you stronger. Well, life's challenges, you got to look at them the same way. Okay. They are conditioning you to become the man you were always supposed to be, and they're only going to make you stronger. Nietzsche said it best: that which doesn't kill you makes us stronger. You got to look at your life's adversities that way and let go of that victim mentality. Okay. I hope I made sense. Sometimes I have episodes where I get to the end of it, I'm like, did I articulate what I meant to? I think I did today. Let me know what you guys think. Drop a comment below. Let's look at the chat real quick and then we'll wrap up. Let's see here. Let's see. Did I give Mike? I know I read this super chat, but did I give him this? I'll give him this.
Shame this horse.
Make sure that we got that one. And then, oh shit. AJ says Tombstone. Yeah. Oh, if you haven't seen Tombstone yet, fucking turn in your man card. That is a phenomenal movie. All the best one-liners come from Tombstone. All the best. That's got that movie is jam-packed with awesome one-liners that you can use in everyday life. You know what I mean? And then $1,990 super chat. What's up, Paul? Can you talk about the wolf pack? Well, what do you want to know about the wolf pack? Because the wolf pack it's my men's community. It's a private community. It's on Telegram, and it's for guys that are either trying to work on their marriage or they're getting over a breakup, typically, or guys that just want to level up and get better with women in general. Right. But we do all sorts of stuff in there. We have a fitness accountability group. We've got a gratitude practice group. We got a hobbies group now where guys can talk about their hobbies. We've got a money group where we talk about finance and investing and getting your money right, and taxes and all that kind of stuff. And then we have the general chat where guys drop their field reports about what's going on with their relationships or their dating and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a great community of guys where they can, get together, talk about guy shit. No women allowed in the group. If we ever have a woman infiltrate the group, she's getting kicked out immediately. She's getting a full refund, but it's not for you, ladies. It's not for you. Men need a space where men can get together and talk about guy shit without women getting involved. When women get involved in men's groups, it completely changes it fundamentally changes the dynamic of the group. Men start self-censoring. Guys are always trying to fuck this chick, like all this kind of stuff. And there starts becoming a bunch of infighting. It's just poison for a men's community. So this is a all males community where we talk about basically anything that guys want to talk about in life. But guys in there who are putting in the work are really seeing monumental changes. And it's really fun to watch in real time. And then the guys that are also working on the stuff, they swap notes with these guys that are doing this, and they're talking about what they're doing, what helped them, and everyone benefits from guys swapping notes. And that's really what Red Pill is guys swapping notes behind the scenes, kind of like locker room talk. But if you've been thinking about joining the group, brother, we're having our pack hangout next week on Thursday. So it would be a good time to join now. You can enjoy the 7-day free trial and see if you even like the Telegram community. But the Telegram community is really where the true value is. We have a monthly pod class, a private pod class, usually on the first Saturday of every month. And then on either the third or the fourth Thursday of the month, depending on what's going on, we have a hangout where we just get together, drink beers, drink water. You don't have to drink beer. We just talk about guy shit. If there's something heavy, we'll pile in and help you with that. If nothing's going on, we just talk about, fun shit that's going on in our lives. But it's just a good community for guys to connect with like-minded men. And it's only $10 a month after the free trial. So there's tons of value in the group. And I'm not charging enough. Let me just say that. I'm not charging enough, but I'm not planning on, changing things. Tattoos, Rhea Ripley. Dude, Rhea Ripley. I'll tell you what, I like Rhea Ripley now that her hair is longer. She looks way hotter with her hair longer. When she first debuted in NXT and she had the short blonde look, it wasn't that attractive. She looked very manly with her fucking V taper and her broad shoulders and shit. But now that she's also dropped weight because she hurt her back. She got slammed on a table, like a corner of a table, and it fucked up her back. So she's actually lost a lot of muscle mass just because she's had to change the way she trains. She looks much better not looking so bulky, and then she has the longer hair now. But yeah, definitely. She's a bad girl. There's a correlation between tattoos and broken women, but it is not a perfect correlation. So there may be nice women with tattoos to some degree. You know, correlation is not causation either, though. You know what I mean? And then Can of Rockstar says, my woman asked me to help her blue pill nice guy. Oh, my woman asked me to help her blue pill nice guy dad, and I told her I can't help him because his world hasn't fallen apart. Well, yeah, it's like we were talking about it in Wolfpack yesterday because God, someone was saying how frustrated they were at their blue pill friend making all these fucking mistakes, and they're trying to get him in the Wolfpack, and the guy just won't listen, says, oh, it sounds like a cult and all this kind of shit. And I was like, red pill's triage, bro. Like, you can only save the ones you can and read the last rites to the dying. Shout out to Rollo Tomasi for that. You can't force red pill. That's true. Can't red pill your friends. They have to seek it out themselves, right? Usually they have to hit rock bottom before they come seeking answers. $5,000 super chat. The steel must pass through the forge many times before it becomes a sword. That's true. And I'm going to give him this one here. Let's see here. Let's shame this horse. Let's
Shame this horse.
Oh, actually, let's give him this one.
Misogyny.
Yeah, misogyny. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, Dark Fitness is getting the wolf pack. Don't question it. Just fucking do it. Yeah, too sweet, bro. And Dark Fitness is in the chat too, guys. So like I said, if you're thinking about divorce, right? If you're really just fundamentally fucking hate your wife, then okay, like plan your exit strategy, get in the wolf pack, get in the divorce strategy group and start working with brother Nathan, right? If you are a fat fuck and you need to lose a bunch of weight, get in the wolf pack, get in the fitness accountability group and start working with Dar Fitness. Dar Fitness is our resident fitness guru in there. He specializes in ketogenic diets, but he's also just a wealth of information when it comes to dialing in your macros, your, calories in, calories out. He knows all this shit. He's in fucking phenomenal shape. And that's also just a benefit of being in the group too. He's in there. You can pick his brain. If you want to work with him directly, you can DM him and he'll happily work with you one-on-one too. But he's a wealth of information in the pack. So that's all we got, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Tune into the podcast on Monday. We're going to talk about when it's a good idea to stop initiating sex with your wife. And I often say, if you want more sex, initiate more. But there are times when that strategy just doesn't fucking work, right? So, namely, when she no longer is sexually attracted to you, right? You could try to keno escalate. You can try to put up the moves on her, but if she just fundamentally doesn't like you anymore, none of that's going to work. Okay, so that behavior is going to come across to her like needy, unattractive behavior, and so it's going to be counterintuitive. But you're going to need to fucking pull back. Okay. We're going to talk about that on Monday. You're not going to want to miss it, but that's all we got for this episode. If you haven't done so already, please like, subscribe, hit those notifications. Otherwise, we will see you guys on Monday. Have a good weekend.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. Now, go out and get it.